From dating to relationships, from sex to love, from Christianity to politics, from darkness to light, you have now entered into the real zone. Welcome to Conversations with Trent, where no topic of conversation is safe from discussion. Now, here he is, Mr. Epic himself, Trent Williams.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another conversation with Trent and Friends, right here on the Roku channel, right here on your YouTube live, all that good stuff. We got a good one tonight. We got a real good one tonight. Topic for tonight is, are you who you think you are? Topic came about when I got a call from my daughter last week, asking about her background and what have you. I guess her mother was telling her about the indigenous people that we were connected to, and she wanted to know a little bit more where her grandmother came from. So got to digging. Good thing I spent a ton of time with my mother over the years, and I've been building the ancestry tree for a number of years. On my father's side, I got to like 1870, and on my mother's side, 1860. So we got a new journey. Kenny and I have a new journey in trace of trying to find these people from this one tribe. Let's bring Coach Dee. Let's see what she's talking about.
Hey there.
Hey. What's going on with you?
Not much. I'm fighting a bit of a cold.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kids are walking petri dishes of ick. So whatever virus Xavier brings from home, that's it.
So tonight's topic, are you who you think you are? I'm not as far as advanced with you with the lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're all back to Scotland and all those places, and you've been doing this for about 30 years.
Yeah. Well, it's easier for me on my mother's side because my mother's white. So
how did I know you were going to go there?
The records are there. My father's side were slaves, so
Right.
The records are kept in cattle records, and
Right.
some of those family still have those records. They haven't released those records to the public.
Exactly. I think it's very important, man, that we know exactly where we come from. It's very important. And for African Americans, it's kind of tough because, I've been digging in this for a number of years. And as I said in the opening, on my father's side, I got like to 1870. And on my mother's side, I got to 1860. But good thing I spent a lot of time with my mother, who was able to give me information. And that's how I built the tree all those years. So good thing, because I passed that information on to Kennedy. Kennedy found the tribe. Now we're going to take, as you know, I told you, we're going to take the 23andMe to see exactly if it's official or not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because there's lots of people who think they have indigenous blood that don't.
Right. Exactly.
Because
with my family actually lived on the reservation. They literally lived on that land. My mother grew up on that land. So that's how I was able to give Kenny that information, and she was able to track down the name of the tribe. So
yeah, some tribes had slaves. They had enslaved Africans. So
we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Listen, sir, if you want to talk about family, you got to keep it real, because that is.
Yeah, we got to keep it real, but I'm not interested in that slave. I'm not interested in that.
That's your.
I'm not.
What do you mean you're not
I
interested?
get it. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
No, you obviously don't, because that is our history. To say I don't care about the slaves is so disrespectful.
I'm not saying it like that.
Past.
I'm not saying it like that. That's why we're taking the 23andMe to see exactly if it's official or not. So I get it. Mm-hmm. So as far as with the lineage, how important it is to you?
You have to know who you are. Absolutely. Especially these days, because you'll see people who say, like the people who say they're proud to be white. I'm like, okay, race is a social construct. Right. What are you proud of? What is the history you're proud of? What are the traditions you're proud of? Right? Like, I grew up in Newfoundland, which is deemed like one of the most Irish places outside of Ireland.
Right.
So we still do like mummering and all those traditional things that occurred in Ireland. And if you listen to many of the people from where I'm from, you'll hear a distinct Irish accent.
Right.
You know what? It's borders are man-made, right? We come
Absolutely.
from areas on the earth. Those areas, the names change, but we have to know who we are to know where we're coming from, so history doesn't repeat itself.
Exactly. Let's say hi to the folks, and I dig into what my experience was with the ancestry and coming up with the census records and all that stuff. Let's say hi to the folks real quick.
Hey, Kathy. Kathy says, good evening, everybody.
Hey,
Martine
Kathy,
says,
what's
hi
going on?
there. One of my cousins doing our ancestry search. She's been doing it for years, too. I have family in Canada. We're also a descendant of Josiah Henson. Yep. It's like there's a lot of really good websites that will help you. I was telling Trent about Cindy's List, which has been around
That was
for
a real good one, by the way.
a
Thank you.
good 20, God, at least 20 odd years.
Yeah, 25, almost 30 years.
Yeah, because it was around when I still lived in Halifax.
Right.
So that's a great website. And you have to look in websites or groups that are specific to the area that you want to research.
Exactly.
Like I know where my mother's family, my father's family from, so I'm not going to be searching in Wyoming.
Right.
I know they're not there. That's not where they originated from.
Right.
They're in Virginia and the Carolinas for my father's family. And then on the other side, it's Nigeria, Cameroon, Bali. I'm trying to remember the other countries. I have to look it up. 1 second.
He's just a ball of melting pot.
I'm a bottle of colonialism, is what it is. If you want to be honest, because my mother thought their family was 100% Irish.
Really?
Right?
Right.
No, we're not.
Right.
There's Irish.
I'm very excited about this 23andMe, and I was telling Kenny, I was like, well, Dee said that's pretty reputable as far as the 23andMe. So we decided to go with the 23andMe to see exactly what's what, to see what's what. But what was really disheartening for me was going through the census records.
Mm-hmm.
Like in some census records, their last names were spelled different. And then, years later, totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I'm like, man, these people were reckless taking these records. They didn't care.
Well, it's census records is not about people not caring. It's about they're written as they were said.
Right.
So accents and things like that would have put out a different name.
Right.
Right. So depending on where the person's from, they may spell a different name differently. And if the person giving the name is not literate, they're not going to know it's spelled wrong.
Right.
So there's all kinds
For example,
of
right? On my mother's side, my grandmother maiden name was Payne, Payne.
Yeah.
And then when it got to her father, it was Panie's. I'm like, huh? Like, what was the change in that? I'm sorry.
I said Payne's is interesting.
Exactly.
Because Payne is an Irish name. We have that name in Newfoundland.
Don't tell me that.
What do you mean don't tell you that? Sir, my father and your father have the same last name. But I know that we're from different areas.
I know.
Like, when it comes to Black Americans, our last names mostly are from our slave owners.
Well, on my father's side, I went all the way back to Jamaica with that one. So, but I was more interested in my mother's side because that's what Kennedy wanted to dig a little deeper into and find this tribe. So, but we're going to do both of them and see what's up with it. But I got as far as Jamaica with my father.
Was he a Black Jamaican?
He was a Black Jamaican.
So he's descended from slavery most likely as well.
Yep. Exactly. That's what, on my father's side, they descended from slavery, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Martine says, we are Walls, Neely, Neil, right? My father's people are Sullivans. Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. So I had been doing my mother's genealogy for about 20 years.
Right.
And then about 10 years, no, longer than that. So 12 years ago, I went home to Newfoundland. And I went to my great-grandfather's hometown. grandfather's house is a museum, right? So I just happened to walk into the museum.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, they had money. So
Right.
I walked in and I then noticed they had a book. So my mother's family history is in a book, which
Oh
makes it
wow.
a whole, like, I could have saved myself 20 years of work.
So let me ask you something.
Hmm.
I think maybe I've asked you this years ago.
Yeah.
Were your family on your mother's side slaveholders?
No, they were in Newfoundland. Newfoundland didn't have any slaves. My mother's family had been in Newfoundland from 1640 on up
Right.
to the last generations. The first generation starts moving around.
Exactly.
Okay.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
Newfoundland did have they were some that left Ireland and went to the United States that became indentured servants.
Dig it.
Completely different from slavery.
Slash just dropped by. What up, Slash?
Slash says Grand Rising Melanated Peoples. Greeting Princess Coach Dee and Chief Epic. Good evening, Queen Kibby. Our maternal Martine says our maternal grandma's grandmother is a white Irish woman who married a black Bayesian man. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I found it. The thing about it, I was so relieved when I was able to give Kennedy the information that I had. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very important. I spent a ton of years with my mother and got a whole bunch of knowledge and information about the family from her. I was so relieved when she called and she called me on the fly.
Yeah.
All I did was open up the laptop because the family tree is there.
Yeah.
I share it with my brothers and all those folks and whatnot. But it's very important, man, to know where you come from.
But it also can be very harmful. So
Do
we
tell.
want to take into account people who have been adopted, people who have been lost from their families,
Right.
or when you do DNA tests, a lot of family secrets come out, and
Yeah,
it's
but you
not
still,
always good.
well, wouldn't you say that you still should know though? You still, at the end of the day, you still should know.
There's a lot of harm in the adoptive community, where birth certificates are changed. Um, there's sense of abandonment. So we that's why when I asked, I said I had to remember that Kennedy was in university and as a volunteer course, because
Right.
there should never be a family tree project in like an elementary, middle school, high school,
Right.
because
Right.
there's so
Right.
much going on in families that it's more harmful than it is helpful. Right? Yes, you should know who you are, but there are instances where sometimes that's not good.
Yeah, but I still think that it's very important. I mean, at some point, you have to face it. It is what it is at this
Sir,
point.
we're talking about extreme trauma here. It's not about you have to
I
say,
get that, but
no, you're not.
so here's the thing, though. I don't believe in just walking around lying to yourself. And I mean, everyone should know where they come from.
Here's the thing. In the adoption triad, people do want to know where they come from, but the government stops it at every corner. And then when they do find out, if that person who gave them up for adoption
Right.
doesn't want to connect with them, then we cause even more harm.
Right.
So we have to be very careful when we say you should know. Yes,
I
it's
get
great to know, but I'm also aware that there's a lot of trauma involved in going back
I
into your
get it,
history.
but for me, I want to know.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
sir, we've had discussions about how you're not very open minded a lot of the time as well. So
knock it off. I think Martina has a question for you. You're a
uh,
mess.
Alvin says, "Good evening, panel." Right, it could
Al
be
Sal,
harmful.
what up?
Oh, what's 23andMe is one of the genealogy test companies. There's like 23andMe, Ancestry.com. Um, I think National Geographic does one, I believe. And
Yeah.
there's some African specific if your mother is black, because they go through the matrilineal line.
Right.
But yeah, it's we have to be careful when we're discussing where you come from, because of the harm that has been caused. Like, look at the indigenous people in residential centers,
Yeah.
right? Residential schools. There are people who don't know that they were taking from parents, right? So there's a lot of
Right.
harm there. Like, can you imagine finding out, like the little girl who was switched at birth? You find out 20 years later that
Right.
your mother is a
I get
kidnapper.
what you're saying, but I'm gonna stand 10 toes down on what I
Yeah,
believe
and
in.
you're wrong.
I want to know. I want to know.
Well, you're going to find out that that's why I
Knock it
asked you.
off, D.
Remember when we
Knock it
had
off, D.
no? Because remember when we had the conversation? You said your grandpa was indigenous. I said, was he really? because there are so many people in the Black community that think we're Indigenous, but we're not.
Right.
It's
I'm
like
okay.
saying,
I'm okay with that. If he's not, I'm okay with that. If he's not, like, I'm
okay,
totally okay with that. I just want to know. I just want to know.
hmm
I'm excited about taking this thing with my daughter. So
yeah.
just
Martine says, I know a guy who found his parents. They ended up married and were together until his father passed. He has 4 siblings too. They even lived near him. Yep.
okay.
Because there's a lot of, especially with divorce, where kids don't grow up with their parents,
Right.
right? Like when
Right.
my father died, there was a private funeral via Zoom, and I wasn't even given a code. I'm like, what a man.
Oh
Y'all are petty
wow.
as heck.
Wow.
Because people are petty. People get caught up in their egos, and it's just like, you know what? I don't know what you're worried about, right? So we have. That's why I tell you have to be careful. Um, what sometimes there may things that come out that people aren't aware of,
Right.
right? So I found we had a brother who was given up for adoption that none of us knew about, and I was the last to know because I'm the one who doesn't put up with people's BS.
On your dad's
And
side.
no, on my mother's side.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
And I hung out with them. People like, you're okay. I'm like, he's my brother. I don't. Whatever happened happened. I have nothing to do with it. This man is my biological brother. We share the same DNA. So
Right.
I will hang out with them.
Hold on. One more, Martine. One more time.
Now, Trent, searching for your biological family could bring the worst type of pain. It's sometimes best not to know, to not dig. Yeah.
I get it, but I just have a different mindset, Martine. I just have a different mindset. Like, I mean,
Yeah, but you have to think about you're very privileged to have both your parents in your life. There's not a lot of people who have that.
I get it.
You weren't found in a garbage bin. You weren't kidnapped. There's all this. You laugh, but there's a lot of people out there
I
who
get it.
beginnings are not good. So yay for you, but no, not for everybody.
I get it. I get it.
Right? That's why
I
I'm
get
the
it.
trauma informed life coach because we understand that there's
Exactly.
pain.
Exactly.
Right?
That's why
So
you're standing on it. But I get it.
yeah,
I
we
get it.
don't no we don't we try to avoid knowingly hurt people. Right? If you knowingly hurt people, then there's an issue. There's something going on.
Yeah.
Right?
So
But
tell the folks about because Dee's been doing this for 30 years. She's been on this trail for 30 years. And where'd you get to? Scotland, right?
Ireland.
Ireland. I'm sorry.
My mother's family, we still pretend there's no Scottish Black. We're Irish. Irish.
Gotcha.
The Scots and the Irish have been at war, yada yada yada. So it is what it is.
Right.
But eventually, Xavier and I will go, and we'll go back to County Kilkenny. You'll find a little town because we can go back to the 1500s.
Exactly.
Right. So I know the first ship that they came across.
But my personal belief, I'll say it again, my personal belief, I believe that everyone should know a little bit about where they come from, where
You know
their
what?
lineage,
You really need to stop saying that.
No, because I'm not gonna sit there and
As
pretend.
a coach,
I am not gonna. I haven't coached in years, so I got to
yeah,
get
obviously,
recertified and everything. So
yeah, you do. Martine said, I met a cousin in elementary school I didn't know until 1983. Our grandfather was a little busy. Lots of family tell secrets while on their deathbeds. Oh yeah. Lots of people clear their conscience when the light shines.
Exactly.
But it is what it is. And as much as I love the idea of the DNA test, I've seen a lot of drama from DNA tests as well, right? We're not talking about just DNA tests and more marriages and divorces. We're talking about kids who are 60 years old finding out they're not the child of the people they thought were their parents.
Right.
And nobody bothered to tell them.
I get it. I don't
think you do.
Just with my luck, I'm more than sure I'll be attached to a white man with my luck.
Dude, you're a Williams in Southern United States.
Stop.
Your last name comes from a plantation owner. What are you talking about?
Stop.
I don't know why you're trying to pretend that didn't happen.
Why? You said you wasn't feeling well. Now you want to aggravate me tonight.
Aggravate you? The truth that's going to aggravate you? Sir, I think you need to be realized for the realism that you are going to find people you are related to.
I'm more than sure I'm going to find a Caucasian or two. I'm more than sure I'm going to find a Caucasian or two because on my mother's side, when it stopped on a guy named William Jenner.
You don't have to look. You just look in the mirror, so you're going to be finding a Caucasian person or two.
You stop.
Wait, I don't know. I were pretending.
So it stopped on William Jenner, and the baby who he had with this unknown woman was Matt.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Matt came from North Carolina into Terrebonne on my mother's side.
Mm-hmm.
And his father was William Jenner.
Right.
No information on him. No information on the mother at all.
You probably have to go into the plantation owner books, and then you'll track them down. Dude, I've been doing this for 30 years.
I know you have. I know you have. I know you have.
I know the last ancestor I can track, her name was Annie. She was 36, and she cost $450.
Wait, what?
That's the last ancestor. Yeah.
Okay.
I am well aware of them. I am proud to be descended from slaves because that means they survived. I am here because they survived.
I'm not against it. I'm not against it. I just want to know.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify to my daughter what it is.
Yeah.
Because she's very interested in it. She's very interested. And then besides it gives us a thing to do together.
Yeah. It is extremely interesting. It can be very confusing if you don't document everything.
Right.
Like where you get everything, who's related to, and all that good stuff.
Right.
But there's lots of programs out there that can do that for you.
Well, that's what I have. It's like a entire thing where it's connected.
Yeah.
Who's who, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's real good.
And
Martine says a comment.
Not to know the truth brings about the facts. I also want to know because there's known knowns and unknown knowns. Oh yeah.
That's true. You're right.
There's lots of stuff people have kept secret. The boomers were amazing secret keepers.
What I'm most excited about is being able to share this information that I've acquired over the years with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud of that because I spent a ton of years with my mother, as I said before.
Yeah. And
she and I talked on a variety of topics throughout, this family, lineage and whatnot. And I was proud when she called me. I was able to give her that information. I was very excited.
Yeah.
Still excited.
It is. It is good. It's good to be able to share and connect with your child on something.
Absolutely.
Right? Because, regardless how old your child is, they're still your baby.
And that's my baby all the way. You already know.
Yeah, and Xavier is my little mini-me. Love him to death. He's clingy as heck sometimes, but love him to death.
There it is. There it is.
And you know what? Sharing what you know about family is important. And I always give you the caveat, always be careful.
Right.
Because there is much of trouble abound when the DNA test comes out. Because you'll connect to people. Like I've connected to the slave-owning ancestors on my father's side.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I had one lady sent me an email, and she's like, I'm just trying to figure out how we're related. And I said, oh, well, where are you from and what's your last name? So I emailed her, and she emailed me the information. I'm like, oh, your family owned my family. Never heard from her again. So, it is what it is. This happened in American history, and we can pretend it doesn't happen as much as you want, but.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And again, I'll say this and I'll leave it alone from there. But me personally, I'm just interested in it. That's all.
There's nothing wrong with being interested in where you're from.
Very interested in it. So.
Right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating, some of the stories that come along. Like my great-grandmother, Miss Susanna Keogh, was a very lady who came from a well-to-do family. Mm-hmm. And in her main room, there was I was the only one allowed in her main room because, of course, I was the first great-grandchild, and I was absolutely adorable as a child. So my uncles used to get upset that she would serve me ice cream and cookies in her parlor when nobody else allowed, surrounded by her Irish laces and her fancy little things. And
explain 23andMe again to Martine. I think she missed what you were saying.
It's a DNA test. It's a DNA test. So Kathy says, my aunt traced our family lineage and she found out some of our ancestors were Dutch on my daddy's side, and on my mom's side, more European and Cherokee. It's very interesting indeed. All right, now the caveat on the Cherokee, because there are a lot more Cherokee than presumed Cherokee than there actually were. So that's why because when Trent said his family was indigenous, I said, are they really? Because there's a lot of Cherokee princesses out there that aren't have no indigenous blood whatsoever. So
we'll see here real soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share the information with you once it comes back.
Yeah,
we'll definitely see it real soon.
Yeah, but it's
because I found it quite interesting that the reservation where the family was. My mother grew up on that reservation, like literally all that time. The place, the tribe is called Panishan. And a lot of people from the area, they know Panishan as a place, but Panishan is truly a tribe.
But growing up somewhere doesn't mean you are. That's what I said earlier.
I get it. That's why we're doing the 23andMe.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Like I shared on my Facebook page what my mix is, so I'll share it now. Right. It's Ireland 29, Scotland 20, Nigeria 14, Cameroon, Congo 10, Ivory Coast and Ghana 7, Benin and Togo 6, Norway 6, Wales 5, and Mali 2. So, yeah.
What's the highest number? What was the highest number?
Ireland and Scotland. So that's from my mother.
Right.
So my mother's family had been in the same spot for 500 years. So that was not a shock.
Yeah, because she's white. You're right.
Yeah. So, and the family immigrated from Ireland to that, and Newfoundland's an island. So there's not a lot of diversity in Newfoundland.
Right. I tell you, it's very difficult, man, tracing, if you're Black, tracing it, it's very difficult.
Listen, sir, I have been tracing, I've gotten back to the last plantation prior to emancipation.
Right.
Because you have to go through cattle records. You have to find slave auctions.
Right.
You have to look through wills and deeds and stuff to find where these people were, because they weren't deemed people, they were deemed property. Exactly. So it's really hard to track down property if it wasn't properly recorded. And like I said, a lot of these especially the large slave-owning families in Virginia, still have those records.
Right.
They're not sharing them.
Martine says we have Native Americans in our family as well.
Yeah. I'm the type, I need to see the paper. I need to see the documentation.
You sound like Kennedy. Yeah. Kennedy's like, Dad, do you have any pictures? So I sent the pictures over. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I sent the pictures over.
It's because when you've been doing genealogy for a long time, you get jaded when people say that, because you're like, I've seen that a lot, and it's not always true.
Right.
Right?
Well, I'm one to dig and find out, because I want to know.
You're going to be digging for a while, sir, because it takes a long time.
I want to know.
Yeah. Well, it might be easier for you because you're still in the same location, so you could go to the archives in the area and track down different records.
Absolutely.
I avoid Virginia at all costs because I get pulled over every time I go there. So.
That's funny. Driving while Black, huh?
Hey,
I found something interesting that when you and I were talking about Israel, and you said something that piqued my interest. You said that DNA was banned in Israel. Was that correct? Did I hear that correctly? You
need a court order to get a DNA test. Okay, so let's be honest about
interesting. That's quite interesting.
Who is a lot of so a lot of people a lot of Afrikaners from South Africa left South Africa, converted, and went to Israel.
Right.
So I have some amazing Israeli friends who've been telling me all about the history of Israel, and some amazing Palestinian friends who've been telling me about the Palestinian Israel. Like I'm very lucky that I grew up in a diverse community surrounded by people from all over the place.
Right.
And some of the things some of my Israeli friends tell me, I'm like, why do people allow that? And they're like, because once they convert to Judaism, they're a Jew. I'm like, but they're not really of Jewish lineage. And he's like, it
Exactly.
doesn't matter. And I'm like, and then he goes, and D, this is why some of us Jewish people don't like the Zionism, because we understand that some of them are not of Jewish descent.
Right.
They're a convert. They're the first generation in their family has ever been Jewish. And so now their kids are getting birthland trips. And what people don't realize is the Ethiopian Jews were being sterilized without their own knowledge,
Mm.
right? And everybody knows Ethiopian Jews have been Jewish since the Bible came out.
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly. I find it very funny how a lie could go on for centuries upon centuries upon centuries, and everybody just believe it after a while.
well, that's why that's like the Pilgrim story, or those stories have been written by the oppressors, not the oppressed. So
Boom,
that's why Christopher Columbus had a holiday. Christopher Columbus was
boom.
a murderous, raping, people eating from his own journals,
Exactly.
right? And
And
so,
this is why it's important, man. This is why it's important for you to have knowledge, at least some knowledge of what went on back then.
yeah,
It's very important. If not, you'll be fed a whole bunch of lies and it becomes the truth to you.
yeah. I was talking to another friend today, and she's Israeli. Her family have lived in Palestine for generations.
Exactly.
Like her mother left in the 70s,
Right.
right? So, and this lady's my age now, and she said that there will be no peace because Netanyahu only knows war. And I was
Boom.
like, ooh. And she's like, I could say that as a Jewish person. You can't say that because they'll automatically say you're anti-Semitic, even though Semitics includes the
Yeah.
Palestinians. But here's the interesting part: is a lot of people aren't realizing the Christian community, one of the oldest churches in the world, is in Gaza, and people don't realize that. And the keys are held by a Muslim family, and they've held the keys to that church for centuries,
Right.
right? And a lot of people get caught up in that it's religion, but it's really not about religion. It's about apartheid
Yeah.
and a pure
I mean, we,
state.
we all know what that's all about. We know
Yeah,
what that's about, occupying that
yeah.
space. We know
I've
exactly what that's about.
we've
Mark
read
has
enough
a,
history books.
a great comment here.
Oh, on PBS Finding Your Roots, Chris Rock said his family
That's the
had
sec-
Indian
that's,
in
a,
it.
that's the second one. That's the first one.
Oh, it's important to have the knowledge on your family, finding out your medical history, and if needing a transplant. Yeah.
Yeah.
On PBS Finding Your Roots, Chris Rock said his family had Indian in it. He found out his family was owned by Indians. Yeah, there were some tribes who owned slaves.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we use indigenous. Indians are in India, not in the United States.
Again,
Yeah,
it's very important, man, to know exactly what's up. I mean, Coach D talking about the trauma piece of it. I get it. I totally
yeah.
get that, but it's still important to know what's up. You know,
Well, you can
at
know
least
what's
for
up, but
me
you find
personally.
you find out that always take everything with a grain of salt and be prepared for the worst,
Absolutely.
right? Because I found out,
Absolutely.
like I'm in a lot of genealogy groups, and people will come on and like, oh, I can't believe I'm related to Charles Manson. I'm like, your last name's Manson. How far distant do you think you were?
Exactly.
Right? You live in the
Yeah,
same area. It
exactly.
doesn't take a
So
genius to
your
predict
father
this
your
stuff.
father has a last name Williams.
Mhm.
Where did they originate from?
They're in the Virginias,
Okay.
but they originated from the west coast of Africa, of course.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
it's fascinating. It's terrifying, but as people of the diaspora, it's important to find out who you are. Like I remember in college, I had met a Nigerian girl. She was in my French class. She was
Hmm.
taking French as well, and we got to know each other. And then, like the final year, she invited me to her wedding. But
Right.
it was a traditional Nigerian wedding, so we wore traditional Nigerian gear. And her grandmother welcomed me. She didn't speak English because she flew over from Nigeria, and she welcomed me as one of the lost ones. And I'm like, "How do you know I'm Nigerian?" And she goes, and her she asked, I asked her ask her grandmother how she knew I was Nigerian. There was Nigerian blood. And she said, like Black people in America do. Like, we know our people. And I'm like,
wow.
yeah. So then when I saw Nigerian, I was like, it tracks.
And what's the percentage on the Nigerian?
Let me bring it up. 14.
Okay.
And so remember, slaves usually came from the same areas.
Right.
Right. So 14, that's a great grandparent.
Right.
It's, yeah. And finding your roots, I love that show, but I don't think people are prepared for what they find.
I agree.
A lot of people are very naive and they think, oh, everything's hunky dory in my background. I'm like, yeah, until you find out you had a serial killer, or there's a, or somebody robbed banks. Like I had members of my family who were sent to Australia as convicts for fighting with the British. Right? So they would have been considered terrorists because they were fighting against an occupation.
Right.
Right.
So what how should I ask you this? What drove you to? You've been doing this for 30 years. What gives you the drive to continue to do that?
Just making more connections.
Okay.
Just finding more people. Like you want to get back to the original person, and it's like kind of a how far can I go?
Right.
Right. Like I would love to be able to track my family back to Nigeria and Cameroon, the Ivory Coast, and Benin, and all that stuff.
I can imagine how rewarding that would be, man.
It would be rewarding yet fascinating.
Right.
Because everybody in that line has a story.
Exactly.
Right. Some of those stories on my father's side are going to be very painful. I'm aware of that. But where did they come from?
Yeah.
Right. Were they forgotten? Were they remembered? Right. What?
It's like sometimes when I'm actually doing a dish and what have you, like I love okra.
Mm-hmm.
But okra's originated from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I truly love okra. I could eat it raw.
I can't stand okra.
What'd you say?
I can't stand okra.
Okra's it's a good dish. It really is.
Yeah.
If it's prepared properly.
It's like rice and watermelon are not indigenous to North America.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, they're African.
Exactly.
So, because the story is that Africans didn't know anything and they were lazy. They only became lazy when they stopped working for free. We've got to remember that.
Right.
Prior to that, they were, they would pay a higher price for somebody who could work their butt off. And it's fascinating to know, like, the secrets that were sewn into cornrows, the songs that were sung to give directions, the directions that were put into quilts that even white historians now deny occurred, but we all have family stories about how a path was sewn into directions were sewn into quilts using different squares, right? So it's fascinating. It's sad. Like if you want an emotional journey, go to the National African American History Museum. So it's set up. You enter, and then you go downstairs, and you go back in time.
Right.
And
another reason why I think it's very important that we know our history. The changes that they're making up in these different states and whatnot, taking stuff out of schools, and it's not good, man. For us, it's not good. Definitely not good. It's very important. It's very imperative that these parents talk to the kids about where they come from.
Well, it's not.
You have an AI telling you exactly where you come from.
Well, that's not so much where you come from. That's the history of the United States that's being removed.
Right.
But they want to remove because they want to whitewash. It's like now they're trying to say that slaves were immigrant workers.
Which is some bullshit.
Freaking planet, immigrant workers, like, there you go. Martine says, I love the whole okra. Which group of people are more vegetarian? And have you seen the film Sankofa? I don't want a lot of shows because Xavier usually watches the TV.
I've never. What is it on? Is it on Netflix, Martine?
I'm like, what? Which group of people are more vegetarian? It depends on what tribes you're from. Like some tribes were hunter gatherers. Sometimes
Right.
were yeah. So it depends. And most poor people didn't eat a lot of meat to begin with, right?
Right.
But yeah, like going back to the history. People like to talk about the Irish potato famine. It wasn't a potato famine. The British kept all the food. They had no food because the British took it, right? Because
Right.
they were occupiers. So those stories, and then like the people coming across on the Mayflower and the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims were kicked out of Europe, right?
Right.
Because they were extremists, and only their religion was the only religion they wanted. It's eerily similar to what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And when you look at things, it's history tends to repeat itself when people don't pay attention to what happened.
Yeah.
Like I posted on my Facebook page, one of the few posts that get kicked down, and I said, if you ever want to know what you would do when witnessing a genocide, you're doing it now,
Yeah.
right?
Of course. I mean, Stevie Wonder could see what's going on with that.
Yeah. And one of my friends posted, he goes, I've always wondered how the Germans were able to do what they did. Now I know. I'm like, you're watching it on the nightly news.
Exactly. And
Like
here's
I
the thing, the crazy thing about that, we're not gonna go too far into that because we want to do a special
yeah.
show on that. But here's the crazy thing about that, like with CNN, propaganda 24/7, making excuses for what's going on over there.
All the local media, all the big media are. You have to go on TikTok and Telegram and see live reports out of.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I'm following. I've lost some of the reporters I was following are no longer reporting, um,
Yeah.
and we can
Well,
only
this is
guess
not
why.
one man who actually believed nothing that he's seen on the tube. So
Mm. It is what
research,
it is.
folks, research.
Yeah. So this is why it's important because a lot of people think that even in their own family history is a lot more glorified than it really is,
Right.
right? And I have friends who are like, oh, my families were slaves who fought for the Confederacy. I'm like, yeah, they fought for the Confederacy or they would die. It wasn't a
Exactly.
volunteer force of slaves. They were slaves. They followed their master, and their master said they were going to fight a war, so they fought a war, right?
It's slash one sec.
Flashlight, did you read my tracing my roots comment? Yes.
Didn't see it.
We go back up.
Let's see.
Yeah, because you mentioned the transplant and the owned by. Yeah, we read that. We read both of them. The first one was that it's important to have the knowledge on your family, finding out your medical history if needing a transplant, and then on PBS, finding your roots. Chris Rock said his family
Yeah,
history
we
is
got
over.
all of them. Slash, we
Yeah,
we got all of them.
yeah.
Yeah, we did.
So yeah, studying genealogy is intriguing. Um, it can be sad. It's a roller coaster,
Right.
right? And I think everybody should go to the National African American History Museum to see the actual history,
Right.
right? Because they have a lot of documents and displays and everything that you wouldn't see anywhere else
Where's it located?
in DC.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an amazing building. You walk down, you get in the elevator, and you go downstairs, and you come out of the elevator in the body of a slave ship. There's a low
Wow.
ceiling. It's very dark, and as you move
Yeah.
up, it gets higher and brighter. It's an amazing building,
Yeah.
and they have a genealogy section
Oh,
that
really?
you go in to do research. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep.
That's interesting.
It's a fascinating subject.
It really is because when Kennedy called me with it after I pulled open their ancestor, I mean I hadn't opened that up since I've been sick. So it's been about 3 years or more. And I was like, well, let me call her. Talking about you, so let me call her and see what she's talking about. See if she could
Yeah.
actually put me on the track back on this thing.
Oh yeah.
And
It's
that website that you recommended was
Cindy's list. Yeah.
yeah, real good, real good.
It's amazing. Like I have. Let me pull up my. Like the stories of like songs, the
Right.
histories. It's when you have it, it's amazing to have it. Like I'm lucky that I have a good portion of my mother's in my hand because it's an island,
Right.
right? So it's easy to track down when people are in one spot for hundreds of years.
Exactly. Exactly. You're right.
And Catholics were
Right.
notorious for records. So
You're right. But again, like I said, hold on, one more comment. I got a comment here. One sec.
he's he's got a few folks out. Who has a few folks out?
Who's that?
I don't know.
Slash says it's coming from earlier. What was it? I didn't see it. Let's see. See if we can find it.
Oh, not to know the truth brings about the facts. I also want to know because there's known. Yeah, we read that too. I've read all of your comments, sir.
Let's see.
Which comment do you think we haven't read? Repost it.
Which one was it? Slash copy and paste, send it back through.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't. It's a whole bunch of folks up there.
Yeah. So family trees are interesting. And some of you might be surprised. Some of your family trees aren't as wide as you think they are. Because
Oh, D.
listen, my family specifically married outside the town they were born in. Because your cousins, like my hometown, most of the I know just by their last names that I'm related to them.
Right.
Right.
So I got a journey on me. I got a journey on looking for this William character, William Janer.
Yeah.
William Janer, Janner, William Janer. The mother's unknown, and Matt was the one child that they had together. Sounds like a slave master hookup to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Martine's back with another one there. She said, I don't really know my paternal side at all. Okay.
He's got a few folks out. No, early he's got a few films out. Typo. I don't really know my paternal side at all.
So you're not knowing your paternal side. Is that by not speaking with your parents, or how did that work?
A lot of people don't know. Remember, we are in some cases only 3 generations removed from slavery.
Right.
Right. So it's your my case, your great grandparents, and people think it's a long time ago. It's not.
Yeah, but you know what? You got a point there.
Like my grandmother was born in 1921. That was what, 60 years after slavery ended.
Yeah, my grandfather was born in 1907.
Yeah, that's even closer. So your great grandfather would have been held by slaves. Like the last child of a slave died like 5 years ago, I believe, in DC.
Right. Yeah.
Like think about that.
Exactly. On my mother's side, Matt Thomas, he was actually born in 1860. So
5 years before emancipation, 1865.
Yeah. 1965. He was born in 1860.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history that is still hidden.
Right. Here's the thing that confused me with Matt. Matt was born in 1860 in North Carolina, but he found his way to Terrebonne Parish here in Louisiana, and he stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
I find that interesting because that was before emancipation, because emancipation was like 65, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
but was this freedom bought?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure.
Because there were free blacks, and here's
he moved. He literally, and it says he moved from North Carolina to Terrebonne Parish in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
and he was like 22, something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of families stayed close to where they were because remember when they left, a lot of them became sharecroppers.
Right.
Right?
Right.
There was a surge north, but a lot of stayed.
So I'm
Right?
real. I'm not as much as interested in William. I really want to know what's up with Matt, because Matt seems like a world traveler.
But
He's moving around a little bit.
that's not really moving around. It could be somebody could have been sold down south and he followed them. Right? So it's most of the stories are not traveling for the glory of traveling.
Right.
So I mean,
We'll see though. We'll definitely see. We'll see
yeah.
what's up.
And you may find some amazing stories of entrepreneurs. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
That'd be real good. One
like
second,
I know
Martine, one more time.
Marchi said I tried to reach out to my dad's family, but they're not responsive. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do a DNA test. That usually brings people out.
Exactly.
You can go back 3 or 4 generations, or 4 or 5.
Right. Right. Appreciate you
Although
guys showing up tonight, man. Good stuff, man. I see Slash, my favorite Detroiter, Kathy, Al Sal. Good stuff there, man. Real good stuff.
are you streaming on Facebook tonight?
No, we're not doing it.
Okay,
We're not doing
Facebook.
it. Yeah,
I'm probably close to going in Facebook jail too because I get a bunch of
exactly.
posts. I get a bunch
So
of
yeah,
posts
we'll
removed this
read
week.
Martine's comment, then we'll talk about the Facebook stuff.
My cousin was asking me just before the show if I'd had any photos of her grandfather and my dad's brother.
Ah,
Do you know any walls in Canada? Do you know how large Canada is, man? I know walls, but they're in Newfoundland and they're white.
right.
So a
So
lot of
folks, if you haven't seen a real Coach D and I live streaming on Facebook, we don't live stream there anymore. We go straight to the platform, straight to the Roku channel, straight to b2gunitytv.com. You can catch us there live. So we're not streaming on Facebook anymore at all because Facebook likes to place chains on you and put muzzles on your mouth and all that stuff. And you can't really say what you really want to say. And
yeah,
we're not going to have that. Not here. Not on my watch.
yeah. Uh, I Windsor, Ontario is a far distance from where I'm from, but I know there probably is because that was one of the exits for the Underground Railroad. Right?
Yeah.
Any of the border towns, you're more likely to find the same names. In where I'm from in Nova Scotia, you'll find the Black Loyalists,
Right.
right? And
Hey, I got
they
a question. Speaking of Windsor, did we ever hang out in Windsor or did we didn't?
no,
We didn't.
no, no.
Didn't I pick you up? Didn't you come? You came from the
The train ends
came
in
down on
Windsor,
the
so we didn't
train.
hang out in Windsor. There's nothing to do in Windsor.
That's right. So yes, that's I picked you up in Windsor and we headed over to the
That's cool.
place.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah.
No, it's but you know what? It's when you start tracking people, it becomes a a lifelong quest because
Right.
once you get into it, you can't really put it down because you're like I've come so far, I can't stop now. So
Right.
it can feel like a chain around your neck sometimes because there's so much information that you have that you want to save it so that somebody else gets it so that they don't have to do the same thing.
Right. Martine says, one sec.
She said, "Yeah, Windsor's a little dull, and she has to set up her new Roku stick."
Yeah. Yeah, you do that. You can actually search conversation with Trent Friends and boom, we're right there.
Yeah.
Live streaming 24/7. Either that or you can go to b2gunitytv.com. You'll see Coach D and I there. We have a plethora of shows there. We have a whole bunch of stuff. I was really surprised when I went back to look at the archives. We put in some work.
Mm-hmm.
We put in some work.
When we gonna start getting paid for it?
What'd you say?
I said, when we gonna start getting paid for it?
I hope soon. I hope soon.
Martine says, "Sweet, yeah." And there's a lot. Here's the thing about Canada that's it's nice in some areas is the Black History Museums does have some family histories, so you can like check out those. And the Black Loyalists, they track
Right.
those folks. So there is information there if you want to look, if you know who to look for.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Good
just a
stuff.
last name doesn't mean anything, because there's a lot of last names that they may be the same last name, but there may be no relation whatsoever.
Right. We got 5 minutes here to the hour.
Hmm.
Yeah. So again, I think that it's very important that you at least have some type of knowledge of your family lineage.
Hmm.
You have to. You should. It's very important. At least for me personally, I think it's very important. I think it's very important that you need to know. You really need to know. It's just like I'll let Coach D talk about the trauma side of knowing, but for me, I want to hear it all.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you can see where they've traveled from, the
Right.
countries they've traveled from, right?
Absolutely.
So my family's not there's not a lot of traveling. They went from Ireland, Scotland, Norway across, and Africa across, and that's about it.
That's it. That's it.
There's
That's
not a
it.
lot of diversity going on in there. Like
Exactly.
you know my history just by looking at the countries, right?
Absolutely.
It's very
Martine,
easy
one
to
more
tell.
time.
Martine says, I'll have a different schedule soon. I hope to be able to see you all live. I'm sleepy now. Well, get some rest, ma'am.
Good stuff. Get some rest. Appreciate you. Appreciate you for tapping in, man. Real good stuff.
We always appreciate you.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
Absolutely.
all the people who listen, and even the ones who give us hate mail. Love you guys too, because that means you're listening, right? If
Hey
you send,
man, straight talk, no chasers. So that's
yeah,
what it is. What it is.
well, here's
As
the
I,
thing.
I watch a ton of podcasts and whatnot, and it's cool. But as far as the whole ratchet type stuff, I'm just not into that stuff.
Yeah,
It's just not. It's just not where I'm at with it.
but
It's cool. I'm not
I love,
knocking them.
yeah.
But, hey,
You know what? I like to look a little ratchet once in a while, just because I don't have any drama in my life, and sometimes it's fine. It's fun to watch a little mess. But but here's the
you're
thing.
right.
I like the hate mail because people challenge me on my views, and I like being challenged,
Exactly.
and
But
I
that
like it
tells
when
but
people
the
get
hate
upset.
mail though, that tells me something, right? They're listening.
Hmm. Yeah.
So if they disagree or whatever, you stepped on some toes
Oh
in
yeah.
a nice way, not a bad way, in
Yeah.
a nice way. You made them think. You made them
Over
open
the
their mind.
years, some of my biggest haters have become some of my biggest supporters.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely,
I got people who hated me who now consider me their internet auntie. I'm like,
exactly.
it is what it is. We have
What I'm
we
most thankful about, with the platform, we actually stream live
Mhm.
international all over the place. Those numbers coming from everywhere.
Yeah,
So it's just not the United States. They come from everywhere. I'm thankful for that.
yeah.
You know, real thankful for that. But real good stuff, man. Real good stuff. I wanted to have a conversation on this tonight about this genealogy and lineage tonight because I was very happy that Kennedy wanted to know, and
Mhm.
I'm very happy that I was able to oblige her and to continue on with it as we discover where these people are and who they were.
It's
So
fascinating. Well, you know what I mean?
it's very
And
fascinating.
some of the stories that we'll find out are intriguing and horrifying, but they are who they were, and we are because of where we came from.
Boom. Say it again.
Right? So
That's
it is what it is. Like, I am proud to be a descendant of slaves because I know that their strength are the reason why I'm here. Right? And some of the innate skills that I have came from them.
exactly
Like my ability to do a craft, I know that I'm descended from some artists from some tribes because I
right.
can pick up a craft and do it without even thinking about
Not
it.
even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good
So,
stuff. Real good
it is
stuff.
like our skills came from other places. And um, High on the Hog is coming back to Netflix with a new season starting November 22nd. So watch it. It's how African American food inspired American culture.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
It's an amazing
We'll
show.
leave it. We'll leave it on a high note there. We'll leave it on a high note.
Mhm.
Coach D and I truly appreciate you guys for always coming through, tuning in, whatever. If you're
Yeah,
catching it
definitely.
on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, we're on all platforms. Good stuff.
Yeah,
And of
wasn't real.
course, on the Roku channel right here on B2G Unity TV.com. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say it wasn't really a messy Sunday, but you got to see me and Trent argue, and I know y'all love that.
Exactly.
The weirdest thing. Why I don't know, but
more of the show we'll get a good messy one out of Coach D. Come this Sunday, so we'll do a messy Sunday. But I really want to get to this lineage thing, man, and yeah, good stuff, real good stuff.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys. Any closing remarks?
Give your loved ones a tight hug goodnight, and always tell them how you feel about them because you never know.
Absolutely. And with that said, you guys be epic.
All right. Good night. Thank you for watching.
Conversations with Trent in conjunction with Taylor Kennedy Media and your radio network would like to thank you for calling in and listening to tonight's episode. We hope that tonight's conversation offended you just enough to turn your mirror inward to come back for more. So until next week's conversation, be epic.